Okay, so here we are. We've arrived at the final chapter of the first season of Percy Jackson. With the release of the finale, the prophecy comes true. And I'll be honest, I've been hit a little bit with those post-finale blues. You know the ones. When a show you've been following for a little while ends, and then suddenly you feel like you have no direction in your life. Such a weird phenomenon. Oh well. Anyway, the previous episode to this, I wasn't really all that thrilled with, and so I felt like it was very important that they ended the series really strong, and got a lot of goodwill that would hopefully translate into a lot of views on Disney+, and in turn, translate to a second season. Because, streamers often cancel. And my god, do I hope it gets renewed. Like, it has a lot of potential, and the world needs as many good, long-running fantasy shows as it can get, in my opinion. But yeah, anyway, enough about that. We're here to talk about the finale, so let's jump into it, shall we? Spoilers ahead, let's go! Okay, so we start off the episode with a sword training flashback sequence with Luke and Percy, set at some point prior to the Capture the Flag game. So basically, Luke gave Percy a crash course in how to fight like a true Greek demigod. And I think this was definitely a much needed scene, and one that I know a lot of people were pretty bummed about seemingly not making the cut originally, but honestly, it makes a lot more sense to put it here. It ties into the tactics that Percy uses in the episode against Aries, but also because it refreshes that sort of older brother bond that Luke has with Percy. Roasting him a little bit, a bit of light teasing, and then a lesson all tossed in there. So it reminds the audience that this guy is important to Percy, and primes you to feel sadder at the betrayal, as opposed to as if all of this had been front-loaded in the early episodes, and then you don't see him again much at all until the very final betrayal. That's no good. This builds the drama to the climax more perfectly. We then see Percy challenge Aries to single combat and tries to throw him off and get him angry by explaining that Aries is really just a puppet of Kronos, a little lapdog, whilst also setting terms for him to leave Hades' helm behind if Percy draws first blood, and to let them go. So they really played into that unstable edgelord vibe that Aries had got going on for him. And as I said when he first was introduced, I think it really fits. And then the fight begins, and I rather liked it, to be honest. Because when you really break it down beat by beat, for that first section at least, it is very, very clear that Aries is just toying with Percy. He's killing him slow. I mean, he's the god of war, he probably enjoys a good fight, and he knows that Percy can't hope to kill him anyway, so why not hurt him? Plus, he's angry, and I think he wants to make him suffer, hence kicking him around instead of just straight up cutting him in half. But of course, this leads to his defeat, because sucked in, at this moment Percy seems to unlock some of his Super Poseidon powers, and rocks Aries with a tidal wave, then cheap shots him for the win, and honestly good. Humble that deadbeat piece of garbage. Screw the gods. Everyone hates the gods. And since the deck was so heavily stacked against Percy to begin with, I think it was only fair for it to play out this way. Like, it's not like he could beat him just by strength alone, so this made a lot of sense. The last couple of episodes have really shaped Percy into quite the cunning character, so good stuff. And so yeah, after declaring Percy his enemy for life, Aries assumes his true form and leaves, leaving Hades' Helm of Darkness behind. So that was relatively straightforward. In the book, doesn't he try to kill them, and then Kronos stops him? Guessing they didn't want to do that or show that here, because his words even indicate that he's not going to kill them, just warning that he'll be back at some point and that he hates them forever.
Hate, 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 double hate, loathe entirely.
Then he leaves the helm, so he clearly was obeying the deal. Oh well. It's at this point that Percy realizes that they're back at the beach house his mum always rents out, so that's another change, and a good one, because I doubt Zeus would just let him fly to New York. He hates the kid, he wants him dead. And we know the gods can teleport, so he could just zap the plane or fly into the plane, destroy it, and pick up the bolt later. But anyway, the pearls drop him off closer, and he gets a taxi or whatever to Manhattan, just makes it a lot tidier. And on top of that, it prevents Poseidon looking like a bit of a dipshit, considering how much danger they had encountered on the journey across America to begin with. Like, come on. Anyway, they find Alecto again, and seriously, this lady dies so much. Surely it should take a little bit longer than like a day for her to be ready to come back. There should be some sort of punishment lockout for getting killed too often, like if you stuff up your passcode too many times on a row on your phone. Also, the radio's talking about how all the flights across the country are grounded due to seismic activity and whatnot, so it's pretty clear the gods are gearing up to go to war against each other due to the Poseidon-Zeus rift. And particularly Poseidon, who's obviously the god of earthquakes, aka seismic activity, as well as being god of the sea. So pretty clear that both these dudes are ready to just destroy America in their quest for victory. But anyway, Alecto takes the helm back to Hades, whilst Percy decides that he has to go to Olympus himself, by himself, to return the bolt to Zeus, whilst Grover and Annabeth go back to Camp Half-Blood to warn Chiron about Kronos, and that Ares and Clarisse are in league with him. So I guess at this point, he still thinks Clarisse is the thief. Honestly wonder at what point he figures it out. Is it the moment he gets back to camp and hears Luke's kind of weak explanations as to why they haven't done anything? Is it in the taxi ride? Or is it literally in the moments as they're walking in the obviously evil dark forest, all alone for some reason? But yeah, Annabeth tells Percy that Zeus is going to kill him, and that it's pretty much a guaranteed fact, and that he shouldn't do it, but Percy says he's done running from monsters, and he goes off to face his destiny. And I gotta say, it was a great scene. Walker's gotten so good as the episodes have gone on, really coming to his own, especially in these emotional scenes. Really good stuff. But once again, another emotional sacrifice scene. As I said, they're well acted, but my god, can they go one damn episode without trying to pull on my heartstrings about this kid potentially going to his death? Please? Like, the emotional dramatic sacrifice angle, it's getting old at this point, and we've had it more than a couple of times. Stop it.
I would die for Riley. I would die for Riley.
Okay.
She then gives him her camp necklace with her beads and her dad's college ring, and off goes Percy to the Empire State Building to head to Olympus. And so here, after Percy makes the poor doorman shit his pants by showing him the lightning bolt, he gets into Olympus. And I gotta say, I love the design of this place. Gigantic, sprawling fantasy city, hell yeah. It looks damn awesome. Like, obviously CGI, but damn awesome. And really epic. And also, most importantly, like it makes no sense. And it shouldn't, because it's just a godly paradise. It's just wall-to-wall gigantic buildings, as if the inhabitants are trying to one-up each other. And honestly, I think I'm seeing some buildings that are beyond just fantasy Greek vibes. Some of those are, they like Chinese or Japanese inspired maybe? I think so. If so, cool detail, because the idea of Olympus is that it goes wherever culture's the strongest, right? Wherever's the most important place on Earth. And for a long time, I'd argue that was East Asia, especially China. And so yeah, I definitely expect they would have made their home there at one point. And so having buildings makes sense. Anyway, we have yet another Luke flashback where it looks like he's simply trying to help Percy come to terms with this new world, but really, when you know that he's a bad guy, very much looks like subtle manipulation and recruitment tactics. Talking to him about how demigods were created by the gods in order to circumvent those rules. Rules that they can't break. Do things that the gods aren't allowed to do. Which to me hints at Luke thinking that the gods don't care about their children beyond using them as tools, which plays into his bitterness. But also that since the gods are wary of demigods because they know they can break those rules, they're also fearful. They're more likely to lash out violently at them for the slightest provocation, squash them like Annabeth would squash a spider that comes across her path. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed that they referenced the spider thing. Didn't need to include it, hasn't really been relevant. And they skipped over that part in the Waterworld episode, but they kept it in, so I do think it's probably going to be relevant somewhere in the future, but we'll see. And so we cut back to the present, and we see Percy making a very, very long walk up to Mount Olympus to the seat of the gods. And my god, this kid must be fit. That is a long way he's walked. And let's bear in mind, I don't think he's really had much time to rest. Yeah, he had the taxi ride to Manhattan, whatever, or maybe the train, I don't know. But before that, they had to make their way from Santa Monica to the mattress store, and then walk all the way to Hades' palace, which involved escaping Cerberus, and then walking across that immense desert with Tartarus in the way. After this, they used the pearls, and they've kept traveling ever since. And then if you look how high up Zeus's little throne room is, it's absurd. Hopefully there was some like escalators or elevators or something. Anyway, it's a damn long way he's had to walk. And then he arrives at an empty throne room, except for Zeus. And I did think it was a bit of a shame that we didn't get to see the rest of the Olympians and how they were going to react to the news, but I get it. They will get cast when they actually have plot relevance. It's a shame though. And speaking of a shame, Zeus was so well played in this scene. Like, holy shit, this guy was amazing. Rest in peace, dude. So much presence. He brought this ominous, powerful tone to the show, and he really felt like a god. More than anyone else, he felt godly, like the king. So it's a real shame we won't see him back, but yeah. This first section of the scene is very, very epic. And what do you know? Zeus, much like at least two of his children, is a piece of shit. As despite knowing that it was Kronos who set this up, he still wants to fight Poseidon to establish his dominance, to punish him, even though this is exactly what Kronos desires. So yeah, a bit of a garbage person, but what else is new in this family, am I right? And I was interested to see that he actually comes across as a legit psycho here, especially when Percy stands up to him and starts spitting facts. He tells him his dad is going to win unless he stops and thinks about what's happening. And by his dad, I of course mean Zeus's dad, not Percy's dad. And Zeus's face, it gets more and more angry, he gets twisted in rage, then he straight up goes to kill him, only for Papa to finally reveal himself. And so you know what this indicates to me? You can apparently just materialize anywhere. Is there any reason why Zeus just never came down off his cloud to find Percy straight up? No? Just teleport right in front of him and bitch smack him into the sun? Is he seriously that lazy?
That's my boy. No, my boy! Father, help!
Anyway, Poseidon then surrenders to Zeus, which earns some brotherly gloating. Imagine that. All those lives that would have been lost, all to satisfy a brotherly rivalry. To end in one getting humiliated at the family dinner. This family's deranged! Then they have a super cool sequence where they speak in ancient Greek to discuss the return of Kronos. Who knows about it, what they're going to do about it. And I know it's just a small little throwaway thing, but it's one of those things that just adds to the world building. It makes it seem more real. I don't know, I just love that sort of added flavour. Yeah, why wouldn't they use it sometimes when they want to speak privately in front of demigods or whatever? Zeus then abruptly leaves after threatening Percy again because being an even halfway friendly uncle is too much for him apparently. And then we hit a massive emotional climax for the series where at long last Percy meets his dad. And it was disappointing, and that's by design, because it works and it makes you feel upset and annoyed because they have a brief chat which is very sweet and wholesome as they both acknowledge what a great job Sally did raising Percy before Percy asks if gods dream, as Aries says they didn't. And after, quite funnily, Aries being called a moron by Poseidon, Percy asks if he dreams of his mum, which makes the vibe awkward pretty quick, pretty deep and personal second question to ask, I reckon, but okay. And then he gets hit with the pearl pretty much straight away after that and gets set back to Camp Half-Blood, so I think that's going to be the crux of the drama with their relationship going forward. That Poseidon, even though he clearly loves his son, he looks out for him from afar, he's going to be very, very emotionally unavailable. It's like that whole story arc from Pirates of the Caribbean with Calypso, the sea goddess. That's how I'm kind of envisioning this, except without Percy turning into Davy Jones. And I think this is going to get to Percy at some point. Maybe after he meets Tyson and realizes that his dad has a shit ton of kids. Who knows? But he's going to have that penny drop at some point that maybe his dad is not the best. Because whilst Percy is currently a massive fan of Poseidon based on what he says to Luke about the gods doing their best later on, press X to doubt there, I think it's going to sour and Medusa's going to be right in a way. Seriously though, the look of betrayal when he sees the pearl, my god, great performance, great scene, loved it, loved every single bit of this. We then have a brief scene where Percy arrives back at camp, only to find that nothing's really seemed to change at all. Chiron's seemingly not been informed of anything and Luke is chucking out excuses. So I guess this is where both Percy and Annabeth are able to realise that Luke's betrayed them, right? Well, I'd assume so, because Percy in the very next scene calls out Luke and explains all the evidence he has for Luke being the thief and for setting these events into motion to get him into Tartarus for Kronos to get the bolt. And of course, Annabeth had followed them all whilst invisible too, so clearly she'd also cottoned on pretty fast as well. So, bad luck, Luke, you got caught, son. And of course then he goes on a pretty typical villain monologue about how he didn't mean for Percy to get hurt, that the gods suck, which is true, and that they need to fight back and join Kronos, which leads to Percy refusing him, and they fight. And Percy puts up a pretty good fight here. Like, he doesn't win, but he does cut Luke, and then he lowers his defenses because he didn't want to hurt him at all. And this leads to Luke's counterattack and Percy's injury. Honestly, I did feel like maybe they nerfed Luke here, but I think they have improved on the overall scene, because in the book, Luke comes across as way colder and more awful and more violent and terrible. Here, he's clearly a traumatized and delusional person. But at the same time, I think he actually believes Percy would have been safe with Kronos and that they should team up. And he cares about Percy. And they really have to keep this energy up for future seasons. In the book, he goes full crazy real quick and just abandons all his morals and all his care for any other demigods. But that doesn't feel realistic and it doesn't feel interesting. You need some nuance there. I want to see that he's still in there. Make him more sympathetic. That's what's needed. Because in the end, he's right about the gods. It's just the way he goes about it is wrong. And then here we hit that home stretch. We have Percy wrap up things with Chiron, organising to leave camp now the drama's been fully dealt with, but of course setting up some plot threads for the future, reiterating that Luke is still out there, and that the enemy's going to continue to view Percy as a potential asset that they want to sway to their side, so look out for some of that next time. And then Mr. D comes over just to mess with him again and get his name wrong on purpose, which, yeah, I want more of this character. Then we wrap up with the trio. Annabeth's going back to her dad's house, which, I don't know, feels like it came a bit out of nowhere. Didn't get enough about her mixed feelings beforehand, just the thing in the Forest of Regret or whatever. And then she says that they're going to some place called Disney World. Kid, you were like 7 when you ran away. A 7-year-old knows what Disney World is. I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. And now that I think about it, how'd she never even seen a movie before? Come on. That was ridiculous. Speaking of which, despite having seen the horrific fate in store for him, Grover has gone ahead with getting his pan-searching license due to his success on this mission, even though Percy and Annabeth carried him hard. Hard. But that's okay. But yeah, something is wrong with these satyrs. These missions have a 100% fatality rate, and yet they are so eager to go out and find him. Cult mentality. Seriously. And on top of that, apparently nobody's ever checked the seas in the thousands of years that he's been missing. You telling me they didn't know that that was part of the wild? Son. Also, the dude's in the Carlsbad Caverns, right? And yet they claim they've checked every inch of the natural world. My ass. Are you telling me some poor satyr actually went into those caverns and Pan killed him or something? Because that's the only explanation now. But yeah, I really like the chemistry that these three had developed over the course of the show's run, so I very much hope it gets renewed. I think they are cooking with this young cast and has the potential to get better and better and better and better. But we're not done, because Percy heads back to the beach house for an emotional reunion with his mum. Hell yeah. This was cathartic, but then it only lasts like 20 seconds. They cut me off and we get a Chronos dream instead, cementing him as the all-time worst villain of the show. Screw this guy. Interrupting my wholesome mother-son reunion? Now I definitely want him to lose. Simply because I'm salty. Anyway, I love Percy's sass here, telling him to get lost because he's already lost. Excellent.
Get lost, freak!
And also later when he wakes up, having learned that his existence could bring Chronos back, and instead of worrying his mum, he just goofs off and calls him grandpa to make her laugh. Excellent. Oh, and then at the end, in the post-credits, Gabe dies! They killed him off for the sole crime of what? Attempted porch piracy. Bit harsh. Oh, well though. And so yeah, after that, it's all over. And I'll probably make a video wrapping up the season and my overall thoughts, but, I thought it was good. Really good. And this was a great send-off episode, a great finale, great redemption from the episode before this. Wish there was more, to be honest. I think it would have been a lot better if the show had more time to breathe, and I very much hope it gets greenlit for season 2. And so with all that being said, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? You like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.